Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, you are now tuned in to the Investor Show. As always, this is your gracious host, the Prince of Investing, Prince Dykes, coming to you guys and girls live all the way from beautiful city and state of Denver, Colorado. Don't forget hit that like, subscribe, comment, and share button if you're catching the playback or if you are catching this live. Feel free to drop a comment and tell us where you're from. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as you can see, we have a very, very interesting topic coming up today. 2020 has been a wild and crazy year, a year that many of us did not see coming, especially we have an election year coming up. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and we all seeing the restaurant industry overnight just change dramatically, right? Some restaurants are fighting to survive. Some restaurants are dying and never coming back. We don't know, right? But as investors, we're looking for opportunities. Hey, maybe there may be some opportunities in restaurants. Maybe what restaurants are thriving right now? What restaurants are on the verge of coming back, or which restaurants will not come back, right? But I don't have a lot of experience in restaurants, but I know someone who does. And that's what this show is about today. As you can see, we have my guest here today. She just give a little bit of a rundown on. I know I'm probably going to botch this up a little bit, but to give you a little rundown on her, you have seen her on this show here before. I think that was about a year ago, a year or two ago, when she was the sitting CEO of Red Robins. She has since retired as Red Robins CEO. And just to give you a little background, she was the now she's a senior advisor for U.S. Foods. Hopefully, I got that right, and she also sat on the Kansas City Fed board. And before becoming the CEO of Red Robins, she had many senior executive experiences with the Yum Brands. If you don't know what Yum Brands is, they own Taco Bell, not yeah, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, KFC. She also was an executive for Starbucks, T-Mobile, USAA. So she's well versed into the industry. So today we're going to have her on. And without further ado, let me bring on my guest, Miss Denny
Good,
Post. How you doing today?
good morning, Prince. How are you? It's a beautiful day.
Definitely a beautiful day, and I'm glad to see you are doing very well and staying healthy.
I am. Thank you, and same to you. That we all come through this, and there's good things ahead. I'm confident.
Okay. Well, the first thing I was kind of briefing people who you were, but the first thing I want to start, who is Denny Post?
Well, I've been in the restaurant industry for much of my last 25 years, but I've also been a mom for almost all that time. I was just thinking that this pandemic, this is the first time, this is the longest I have not been on an airplane since my son was born 26 years ago. So I've been in
Wow.
the business world for actually almost 40 years. I'm a mom, a wife, a resident of Denver, Colorado. Very active in promoting. Women, and now really broadening my focus to just greater diversity in business and realizing how critical it is for all of us to use our influence to broaden diversity. I sit on two public boards, Wyndham Destinations, which is the largest timeshare company, vacation ownership company in the world. And I also am on the board of Vital Farms, which just
Hmm.
went public about 3 weeks ago. And and so I'm lead director there. And really trying to use my position and my influence to create change in the world. So eager to talk to you.
Oh, awesome, awesome. Definitely glad to have you. So, with your wide variety, being on the an executive at Red Robins for so long,
Hmm.
then also becoming the CEO for a while there, and then retiring last year. And then, like you spoke about, walking into this pandemic, what is the current state of the restaurant industry that's pretty much just been overnight just blunder? Because I know a lot of companies were already struggling before,
Well, yeah.
trying to turn that profit. And what has happened now?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the restaurant industry really blew up, grew up in a positive way, largely related to women coming into the workforce. So
Mm,
you can actually track back and see the growth of particularly casual dining and restaurant chains because with more disposable income, two income households, et cetera, and more demand because women didn't want to cook dinner quite as often when they were, going in full time coming
mm,
up through the 80s and 90s with that growth, you saw a lot of growth in the industry. That had slowed down tremendously. So what was happening is, you can drive revenue by by increasing the number of people who come to your restaurant or by charging the few people who do a little bit more. And so there have been relying a lot on price, and they've been relying a lot on adding new units, which it doesn't grow same store sales. So the restaurant industry got overbuilt, candidly. And it was particularly for small or for franchisees who had extended themselves into the business. There were a lot of franchise businesses, which is what many restaurants are, who were tenuous coming into the pandemic. And then, of course, independent restaurant operators who have to really, really fight to make money on the bottom line because of the cost of labor and occupancy. Real estate occupancy was a nightmare. So pandemic comes along, all dine-in experiences shut down. Those who have drive-throughs, so the quick service restaurants, fast food, the ones we typically think of, the McDonald's, the Burger Kings, the Taco Bells of the world, they continue to do really well because you can get in your car and drive through a drive-through without coming into contact with people, and they adapted pretty quickly. But any of the restaurants that depended on people dining in the restaurant had to completely pivot to off-premise delivery, curbside, takeaway. And it's hard as all get out, even if you double that business, to come close to making up for what you were doing before. And it put a lot of people out of work. A lot of bartenders and servers and shift managers just flushed out, unfortunately, because there was no demand.
Wow. Now I got to ask you this question. Like you spoke about earlier, a dine-in restaurant having to shift and pivot to look at new ways of trying to even remotely make up some of the money that they had, right?
Mm-hmm.
The question I have is, how can a company or how can a traditional dine-in, like you spoke about, like a Red Robins or a Chili's or Applebee's or whatnot, how can they even survive? With all their real estate, it's the biggest thing is the overhead costs. You still have to pay for the building. You still have to pay for to keep the kitchen up and running. This big building that's essentially trying to turn into a drive-in. How can you survive for COVID with the
Well,
pandemic going on?
yeah, you've got it, because occupancy is a high fixed cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other variables like labor and food cost you can manage. It's again difficult, but the high fixed cost of occupancy. One of the first things, of course, that happened in this ripples back up line is people immediately stopped paying their full rent. They worked hard to, they worked with their landlords in some cases to decrease their lease costs, and did some of those other components. But the other thing that's a real challenge is that the off premise of the delivery business. So the most profitable thing, and just on a personal level, if anyone wants to support their local restaurants, do direct takeout. Go and pick up from the restaurant itself, because that's the most profitable sale for a restaurant. It has the highest degree of certainty and margin for them. But a lot of these, I imagine many people are using apps like Grubhub and Uber Eats and all those kinds of things. Unfortunately, those come at a very high cost to restaurants. It can cut your margins in half or worse. So while they can keep some revenue going, the bottom line really got affected. And I've seen some restaurants, the Darden chain, for example, Olive Garden,
Mm-hmm.
Longhorn Steaks, their brands, they are not using third-party delivery. So you can't get delivery from one of those folks for a Darden restaurant, but they've gotten really good about using their parking lots and call ahead. It's accelerated the push into contactless payment and order online. And, it has brought a decade's worth of consumer change into the space of about 6 months, because we've all adopted some of these new technologies, or most have, like ordering online, that we may not have done before. So, you're seeing some that were better prepared to do that than others. And again, from an investment standpoint, if they've got a drive-through, they're still doing well, relatively. If they were a solid, well capitalized, well funded company prior, they're doing okay. A lot of people scrambled to get what they needed to make sure they had money on the books to carry them through this. But for the most part, there are many though that just don't have the cash flow anymore to be able to succeed, and so you're starting to see bankruptcies in the system.
Okay. Speaking of that, we've seen a lot of companies. I think it was the last one I saw was California Pizza. Do
Yep.
you think Red Robins will make it through?
Yes.
You think they'll make it through?
Yeah. Yeah. The problem with California Pizza Kitchen, number of things. They've been laden with a lot of debt by an investor that bought them. So they were held by a private equity firm, or they are,
Mhm.
called Golden State Capital. I think I got it right. Um, at Golden Gate Capital, I'm sorry. And the other thing is they were heavily exposed to malls.
Mhm.
So there, I think I'm going to guess 65% of California Pizza Kitchens, conservatively, locations were actually in malls.
Mhm.
Red Robin, by contrast, only has about 20%. So that also really undermined a lot of these folks, because the occupancy cost is very high and these malls just completely shut down. So they had their, and if you're in a mall, you're not a great location for carry out or takeout, et cetera, because who
Mm.
wants to park and walk in through all that to get carry out and takeout? So California Pizza Kitchen is a good example of that. Others that have gone bankrupt, TGI Fridays is struggling. They've been closing restaurants left and right. They haven't gone bankrupt yet. Ruby Tuesday is closing restaurants left and right. They just weren't strong concepts before. They were already down to annual unit volumes of somewhere around 1.5 million, whereas Red Robin is twice that.
What makes Red Robin different from the other ones to be able to survive through this time?
Well, it's known for something, and that's great burgers, number one.
Mhm.
So if you have something that people just love and crave, and they really they're used to enjoying, that helps a lot. The other thing is that they're known for taking care of families, and generations and generations now
Mhm.
for 50 years have known Red Robin as a place that they can go. Whether you're 90 or 9 or 9 months or 90 years old, you can take a whole family there. And so that please everybody kind of ability. There aren't a lot of restaurants that can do that, and Red Robin can still do that.
Okay. Now you kind of touched on this earlier. You said the companies we spoke about the companies that will struggle, the companies that will thrive, some restaurants that will thrive during this pandemic that is kind of have on the reverse side of the restaurant business. What are some companies out there that will thrive and why?
Yeah, a lot of them are again fast food, because of the affordability. So along with this pandemic, of course, has come the horrendous economic impact. And we are in a recession. Obviously, seeing the impact on household income of job loss, as well as the uncertainty of the federal government support, has made it more difficult. So, but people will continue to need uh, dine out options. What they're going to do increasingly, though, is look for ones that are more affordable. So the most affordable continue to be fast food mostly.
Mhm.
So they're well positioned relatively to do well. And those would be the large fast food names. Some of the other ones that are doing well are the ones that have a fresher, newer concept, that are appealing more to younger, more millennial kind of targets. Growing concepts like Sweet Green and of course Chipotle, and Chipotle has done an amazing job. They've actually thrived through this. I think their stock is at an all-time high now,
Mhm.
and largely because they are so good not only at meeting the needs of millennial and younger generations, but also because of their digital presence, their ability to really deliver on that promise. So the Chipotles of the world, et cetera, will continue to do well. Casual dining is going to be really struggling. But
Mhm.
the ones that are known for something, Olive Garden, Texas Roadhouse, Red Robin, they still have something. They're not just a bar and grill where you used to kind of go and socialize. I mean, when I was, I'm going to say your age because you're a younger man than I am. But when I was certainly when I was in my 20s, TGI Fridays was a cool concept to go hang out at. It's not anymore, and it was never really known as for anything from a food standpoint. So I think you're going to see those that like an Olive Garden, like a Texas Roadhouse, like a Red Robin, who are really known for something, do all right through this as well. And then the last is the big experiential places like a Cheesecake Factory. I mean, people will still, when they come back out, they're still going to want the full experience. And whatever it is about a Cheesecake Factory, they do a heck of a job of delivering on that. So their biggest issue, of course, is that mall exposure. But people go to the mall to go to cheesecake, so they'll hang in. But there's a lot. I mean, Bar Louie's gone. Trying to think what else. There's a number that
Bar
have
Louie's
fallen
gone.
out.
It
They
went
just
bankrupt.
they went bankrupt.
Wow.
Yep. They're out at Southlands here and they opened. I don't know if they were open a year here in Southlands. They're gone.
Wow, that fast. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, speaking of the restaurant industry, as an investor, I want to talk about some of the finances of restaurants. Like you're
Wow.
looking at the finances, like when Miss Denny Post going there, especially being a CEO, you spoke about that bottom line and that top line. When you look at the finances of a restaurant, what's some things that you'll say and say, "Whoa, this is a good company."
Well, the ability to manage labor cost, and again, this is something, and again, we won't get into politics, but the
Mhm.
likelihood of the change coming.
Uh,
Did you see my smile? I don't know, um, and that is likely going to bring some federal action on with regards to minimum wage. So when at Red Robin, 29,000 team members total. Of those, I'm going to guess 2,500. I may be underestimating, but we're salaried. Most of the rest were all hourly employees. And right now the hourly wage varies so much by state. So um, Brinker, for example, who run Chili's, they have much more presence in the Southwest. They grew up out of Texas, and Texas has a lower minimum wage tip credit that
mm,
allows them to keep their wage and their overall labor cost much lower than a Red Robin that has so much more on the West Coast. If the federal government chooses to act and kind of equalize that and start to raise the minimum wage, you're going to see a little more of an evening playing field there. Unlikely to reach $15 like it is now in California rapidly, but it'll get there. I think really good use of labor. Labor that's efficient, high productivity. You're going to invest. You want great people on the floor. It's a people business. You want great people in the kitchen. So restaurants that are investing in things that make the team member more productive, I would look for that.
mm,
And you're going to see coming out of this increasingly restaurants now using things like QR codes on the table, which they've done to eliminate
mm.
menus because of the pandemic. That's gonna be an area where they're gonna save cost over time. So there are these new habits and behaviors that will allow the customer or the guest to help themselves a little more, pay at the table, contactless payment, that kind of thing. So that means somebody can take more tables, for example, the better use of labor. The second is are they pricing themselves? I worry about pricing themselves out of consideration because again, with a recessionary environment, people want a lot of value. They want a lot of food for their money. So watching those, and I'll call it Texas Roadhouse, they do a good job of always having affordable items on their menu. They just really keep their costs low, and they go out of their way to make sure people can take a family out and enjoy a meal, and it not costs hundreds of dollars. So pricing, I think, is really critical. Accessible pricing. And then this whole notion of how are they doing both in meeting the needs of customers or guests who will not come back into the restaurants. I mean, I think it's going to be a long time before people are going to feel comfortable dining out,
Hmm.
going to theaters, doing all the things that we used to do without thinking about it. People are going to think about it again, and so how good are they at managing um, the different ways of accessing their restaurant? Are they good at carry out? Are they good at delivery? What are their ratings online relative to their ratings at dine in? So those are the things I would look at. But from a financial standpoint, a large part of it is management of that labor.
Wow. Okay, I
Yeah.
definitely good nugget there that I never thought about to
Hmm.
say, oh, as minimum wage rises, that
Oh
hurts
yeah. Yeah.
restaurants, that hurts turn the profit. Now,
It hurts profit, but it also, I mean, the argument is it also creates rising incomes and the opportunities for more people to take advantage of it. So I mean, that's the fair wage argument.
Okay. Now, on the other side of the house, how do you feel about companies like the Door Dashes and the
Duh.
Uber Eats and the delivery services? The rise of Uber Eats and the Postmates that make everybody deliverable now. How do you feel about that, being on the other side of the restaurant industry?
I'm fascinated by them. I mean, the fact that they make their living off of contractors
Mm.
is it's kind of I don't want to call it a house of cards. That implies it's more shaky than it is. But they've created this middleman place, right? So they basically are providing the technology that allows me to order online from a wide range of restaurants. I love the variety. I love the access. Sure, I love it. But then they rely on they charge me a delivery fee. Generally, they capture that. They charge the restaurant. They take a percentage of the sales, and that is negotiated. Their enterprise rates. Their individual independent restaurants, for the most part, pay the most. Though I think those guys have all tried to help independent restaurants by lowering those fees. But you're talking double digit uh, revenue shares. I'll just put it at that, 10% or more.
Mm.
And then on top of it, they've got these gig workers that are paid, maybe get the tip. They should be getting the tip. There's been some controversy around that, and they're hustling and driving their own cars and stacking orders and doing a lot of things. So it's not a well controlled or transparent system all the way through. It is more efficient than trying to run your own delivery right now, because trying to manage your own delivery where you actually send your drivers out like Domino's does is very hard for most restaurants. There's a lot of liability. There's a lot of cost of just having that person on the books. You have to employ them. And so, they're, I'm going to call it a necessary evil.
Mm.
Um, Look carefully. There's not a one of them that I think has made money yet.
Yeah, none of them. No.
Grubhub's been acquired by I think it's Deliveroo or one of the,
Europe, I
not
think it
Deliveroo.
was.
It was another concept out of Europe.
Hmm.
Of course, Uber Eats has brought up Postmates. So now they've all been acquiring all the little guys, and but they're not making money. So at some point they're going to have to start jacking up their fees, and
Mm.
I think it narrows their potential customer base a lot. There's not a lot of people who will pay anything for convenience. At some point, they'll be willing to get in their cars and go pick it up themselves.
Okay. Well, I do have one question here from Stephanie Smith. She says, "What is the average profit margin for
Oh
restaurants?"
boy, average. Stephanie, you're asking a great question, because average is averages all over the lot. But restaurants typically will spend, let's say, food costs. Generally, they try to keep under 30%. Labor cost as well. Occupancy depending on location, and again, this is all based on volume. So, on a percentage basis, you're looking at a variable rate, but it is not at all uncommon for restaurants to struggle to earn 10-12% on the bottom line. And so if they have to give up half of that, it basically in margin to a third party delivery service, it's
Mm.
it's hard. That's why a lot of people, when they end up opening a restaurant, end up basically working it themselves, because they can't afford to employ people. There just isn't enough there
Mm.
to take home as a true profit margin. They've got to be in there themselves offsetting labor. So, I mean, high margin restaurants that are operating with a lot of alcohol,
Mm.
because alcohol is very high margin. If they're selling
Mm.
a lot of cost bottles of wine and high ticket average, and they've got that, they can be 25% profit margin. But I would say most are in the 10 to 12 range.
Okay. Well, Mr. Denny Post, thank you for your time and expertise. Definitely, I will start looking at labor costs.
Look
Somebody
at labor costs.
thinking
Yep.
about labor costs of rising minimum wages, and thinking about companies like a McDonald's or whatnot that are thriving during this time frame, and looking
Yep.
at dining restaurants. But a lot of investors, people come in and say, we see Darn's restaurant is down. We see Red Robins is down.
Oh yeah.
Now people start to wonder, are there some opportunities there? or should I be looking elsewhere? So definitely, is there anything you want to leave out there for the live audience and the people that would catch the playback of this?
Just again, just for the restaurant industry. I mean, it will evolve over the years. And again, it's a true need. We all want restaurant quality food to consume with our Netflix
Mm,
binging. So it's not going to go away, but you're definitely going to see a pretty dramatic shakeout in this business. And watch for the ones that are able to take their business models and pivot them in a way that makes them more efficient and more effective. So and for whatever you do, don't get into it. It's not the kind. People always think, how hard can it be to get into the restaurant business? It's really hard. It's
mm,
deceptively complex. So I don't recommend it as a entrepreneurial dive unless
mm,
you're really looking for you're really looking to work really very, very hard. You got to be there long hours. So, but in any case, it is a great business, and I encourage people to look at. There is some good value out there in terms of investment right now. There's some good value.
I got a question for you. What do you think the future of restaurants will be? Like, will we be dining more in the future? People be dining more at home? I know like a lot of restaurants was built around high travel places like movie theaters is pretty much almost non-existent. Malls are drying up. When we're consuming food, do you think the way we're going to consume food will be different in the future? What do you
Yeah.
think the future of like how are we going to eat in the future?
I think people have learned to expect restaurant quality food. So, but
Mm,
I think more of it is going to be consumed at home. So there's going to be growing demand for delivered food or takeout, which means big 5,000 square foot buildings just for the average family dining or casual dining restaurant aren't going to be needed. So there's going to be a lot of asset reduction or shared assets, which is where you hear about ghost kitchens. People
mhm,
have a brand, but they're sharing a warehouse place with lots of different kitchens in it. So it's a much more efficient use of assets or asset utilization. Drive-throughs will continue to exist because people will still need fast fuel and quick food. And so, the Popeyes and Burger Kings and all those of the world are going to continue. And then at the high end, you will see high end restaurants recover. I mean, again, it's the bifurcation of the economy and there's still going to be a lot of people who can afford to go and spend a lot of money and dine out. And so as soon as we have this COVID situation and whatever its follow-ons under control and people are confident, you'll see fine dining recover pretty rapidly. So
mm.
I think it'll be a fine dining fast food business with some brands left in between where you still go occasionally, but you access their food more often for home.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, Ms. Denny Post, thank you for coming through. As always, I want to thank you. Did you have fun?
I did. I always have fun with you. Are you kidding? Good to see you, my friend. All
All
right.
right.
You take
Thank you.
care. All
You
right. Bye
too.
bye.
Bye. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, until the next video podcast, cartoon, or whatever else crazy you see me do around the globe. My name is Prince Dykes. That was Miss Denny Post, retired CEO of Red Robins. Peace. Be safe. I'm out.